Hi guys, it's Callum or CPFC Cal on Twitter for Dossers Do Football. Today I'm by myself. It's the first time I've done one by myself, podcast by myself without Henry. So bear with me. Hopefully it's all right. Hopefully you can put up with it just being my voice and not two people. But ironically, because Henry's not here, I'll be talking about Arsenal, even though he's the Arsenal fan. But obviously we move is what it is. He can't be here because we're both at home for Christmas, so it's just me today. But um, yeah, I'm going to be speaking about what is going on at Arsenal, what's wrong, what's right, if anything's right, what they should do about it, stuff along those lines. So basically, I think the best place to start would probably be with the manager. Speak about Mikel Arteta, because to be honest, when he came in, I thought good appointment to be honest, and you've probably heard me speak about it before because in my pre-season predictions, I quite shamefully had Arsenal to finish third. It was a bit of a hot take, but obviously I've got it wrong unless some sort of miracle happens and they win every game for the rest of the season. But obviously, yeah, I got it wrong. I did say if they sign a creative midfielder, which they didn't, but it was badly wrong. So in the dressing room for Arsenal, there's clearly some issues. After the loss to Burnley, there was an article published, I can't remember who by, but it basically outlined a few issues in the Arsenal dressing room, which, to be honest, weren't too much of a surprise. Especially, I said on Twitter the other day, when you look at some of the things that have happened around the club, they sort of get overlooked when they happen, but it does point to a negative dressing room atmosphere. So Danny Ceballos, a couple of times now, there was in a warm up before Arsenal's game against, I want to say Brighton, but I don't even know if they played Brighton. But in one of the warm ups, crunched Eddie Nketiah, heavy challenge, probably could have injured him. To be honest, it was a bad challenge in a warm up. Obviously, a bit of an argument happened there. They were pushing each other about, but it got resolved. They put pictures on social media and that together saying like, "Oh, it's fine. Like, there's no issue here." But it does point to a negative atmosphere. And then recently as well, again, Ceballos, issue with David Luiz, where apparently David Luiz punched him or something, or the other way around. Something like that happened, like a proper training bust up. And again, like if the players aren't getting on in the changing rooms, how are they gonna link up on the pitch? It's quite ridiculous. Now they've said in this article that David Luiz isn't even talking to Arteta. They're not even speaking. He refuses to talk to him, which is a bit outrageous. If one of your most senior players, most decorated players, most experienced players is refusing to even communicate with your manager, what does that say about the state of the club? Um, to have a player as influential as David Luiz probably is and must be, to not even give the manager respect or sort of acknowledge him, like acknowledge what he's trying to do with the club. Just the complete disrespect and complete lack of almost effort just shows there's clear problems within that dressing room. I think it does come down to Arteta himself, but as part of the issue. Um, Apparently, or like he's been described as a bit of a control freak. There's all these non-negotiables that he speaks about. There's apparently in this article, apparently he's threatened to destroy whoever is leaking the dressing room information, which is apparently a few of the players were like, "Whoa, that's a bit like dramatic." But then there's it clear, in my opinion, and in the opinion of quite a lot of Arsenal fans, favouritism from Mikel Arteta towards some of the players. He plays players who are not in form just week in, week out, despite the fact that there's better performers. So Hector Bellerin being the main example recently. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, whenever he's played, has been solid. Obviously, there's some sort of issue there with Arteta. There was before, but it seemed to be fixed. He started the run of FA Cup games last season for Arsenal. Looked impressive. Has been very good. Hector Bellerin hasn't, to be quite frank about it. Um, he's been poor defensively, getting thrown about by Jack Grealish. Doesn't do much going forward. The only good thing he's done recently is win that penalty at Man United. But other than that, seriously disappointing. So why Hector Bellerin continues to start games is anyone's guess, to be perfectly honest. Then you got Willian, who sparkled on his debut. Let's be honest, he was amazing against Fulham. 3 assists, creative, played some fantastic passes, made some fantastic runs, looked every inch the best, um, at his best. But since then, again, slowed down, not doing the things that he was doing or the things that he can do, but relentlessly playing. Even before Nicolas Pepe's red card, just relentlessly starting games. And over players like Pepe, who, to be honest, they're performing better and they're better players. It's not even as simple as Willian's a better player than Pepe. He's not, to be perfectly honest. People don't particularly rate Nicolas Pepe outside of Arsenal, but I think he's a fantastic player. He does bring something to that side that no one else does. It's as simple as that, really. I was speaking to Henry about this the other day, and he said, just because someone put a post on Twitter saying people on Twitter think they can manage Arsenal better than Mikel Arteta. And Henry's been telling me this for a while, that he believes he would get that club firing. And he says, just play the players, play your best players in their positions, and you'll get results just from that, because the players know how to play football. They're not bad players. Put them where they need to be playing and just tell them, have fun. Obviously, it's not quite as simple as that, but he's not even, that you'd think playing your best players in their best position would be the bare minimum for a manager, and it isn't, still not even happening. I've also got written down that the leaders in the Arsenal dressing room apparently are Mesut Ozil and Socrates, neither of whom are playing games. Ozil's not in the squad. Socrates has no look in. They were desperately trying to get rid of him in the summer. Is those two options to not play these two players, to me, seems like it might be a bit of a power grab from Mikel Arteta to sort of dull down their influence, get rid of the massive influences in the dressing room and sort of take power. And again, it goes back to the point I was making about Arteta being somewhat of a control freak, where he wants ultimate control over what happens in the dressing room, on the pitch, and all of that. So, to be honest, to ostracize the players, especially Mesut Ozil, when you're crying out for a creative midfielder, publicly as well. It's not like everyone sort of, sometimes there's an issue with a club. Everyone recognises what it is, but the club don't say it themselves. Edu, the Arsenal, I want to say technical director, has said we desperately need a creative midfielder. Mikel Arteta has said we lack creative midfield players. So why is Mesut Ozil? Obviously, it might not be for football reasons, but Mesut Ozil's your man. But he's not getting a look in. Socrates as well. If he's such a big leader in the dressing room, he's not a bad defender either. Like, realistically, what's Rob Holding doing in the team every single week? What's Rob like? Is it quite ridiculous? You've got multiple better centre backs than Rob Holding at the club. So again, favouritism from Mikel Arteta and just sort of a blatant disregard for the powers in the dressing room. If the players are influential, that means a lot more than just on paper them sort of being able to, I don't know, it's different from leaders. Influence and leaders is different. You can have a lot of leaders and it all be positive. Look at, I'm going to bring it back to Crystal Palace because that's what I know. We've got Gary Cahill, leader. James Tompkins, leader. Mamadou Sakho, leader. Milivojevic, people don't want it, but he's a leader. Um, Even Zaha, leader, leads by example. Um, they're all like players that could have the armband and can lead the club. But then you've got influence in the dressing room. So apparently at Palace, Cheku Kiyate, big influence in the dressing room. Christian Benteke, big influence in this, yeah, big influence. So these are players that you we wouldn't necessarily have as your captain, but they have a big effect on the team. And seeing that at Arsenal and seeing these players that have such a big influence, but are completely overlooked and pushed aside by the manager and by the club, it really does pull questions of just why? Like, what is the reason behind all of this stuff? Of course, as well, I wanted to make a point about the players that have been good because realistically, it's not just a case of these players aren't good. So I've got written down Saka, Gabriel, and Tierney as the real standout players. Gabriel's been fantastic since he came in, absolutely fantastic, worth every single penny at least and more than what Arsenal paid. What a fantastic player he is. Organises the defence, plays it out fantastically, takes roles upon himself, throws himself at the ball, creates play from the centre back. He's telling people move up the pitch, plays it into Tierney and stuff like that, plays it into Xhaka, keeps the flow moving of the game. And he is a player that Arsenal really lacked recently, especially last season. A player that can dictate the way they play from centre back, but he can't do it alone. And then we've got Bukayo Saka, who I'm not even sure the gaffer knows his best position, to be perfectly honest. He played left wing back, left wing, right wing, centre mid, like anywhere where he's needed. And it's fantastic that he can do it, and he is a brilliant little player. But if he needs to solidly have one position where he can really make an influence on the game. For me, it's left wing. I believe he's at his best when he can get to the byline, cross the ball in, but he can also come inside, feed overlaps from Tierney, look for runs from Aubameyang. But he needs to play that position regularly. He needs to be given the opportunity to stamp his authority on it. And as much as like he's been a fantastic player, you can't keep just using him as a utility player because that's what he'll become. He'll lose the influence that he can have in his position because you're then thinking where to play him. You're thinking, do I play him centre mid? Oh, we don't have a left back today. Let's put him there. Oh, we don't have a right winger today. Oh, we'll put him there instead. Like you can't use him as a sort of plug for your positions. He has to nail down that left wing position, in my opinion, to really stamp his authority on that team because he is that kind of player where he will be in this Arsenal team for 10, 15 years to come. He's only young still. You've got to remember, England international as well at his age. Like really, really will be the driving force of any future Arsenal team if they're serious. Um, Also Kieran Tierney, fantastic. One when I was speaking about leaders, Kieran Tierney is a leader, captain at Celtic, captain at Scotland. Um, Now for Arsenal, really a high performer for them, really an impressive player. Puts in a decent performance week in week out. Obviously, he sort of people take the piss a bit because there was that stumble against Man United, was it, or something like that, where he sort of fell over his own feet. But realistically, he's been one of their most consistent and positive performers at the club in what has really been a shocking team season for individual performances. Those three players really have stood out for me. Um, but then obviously you've got your players that aren't playing well. So I've got a whole little, I've got a few notes written down on my phone, and there's a whole section of Granit Xhaka because this guy, I, I feel like it needs to be talked about because you can't just overlook it. To be honest, so he was going to leave the club last January when Arteta came in, apparently desperate to leave. But Mikel talked to him, convinced him to stay, wants him to be part of the side, reintegrated him into the team after what happened with the whole captaincy issue. Of course, kicking off at the fans is never good, but reintegrated into the team and even won back some of the fans. Granit Xhaka had an influence over his own career, and he did well. He worked, he performed, He was one of Arsenal's better players. He managed to, he's dictating play, he's bringing passages of play that no other player in that squad can really bring at the moment. But he fucked it, to be quite simple. He's really ruined his chance now. Everyone's always had him down as a clumsy player. He makes mistakes, gets stupid red cards, stuff like that, silly decisions that he makes. But in the words of Mikel Arteta, in the situation that they're in, it's unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable from Granit Xhaka. Lacks discipline, lacks any real authority over himself. He's let himself down. He's let the club down. And to be honest, I'm not an Arsenal fan, but it pissed me off that red card. I was like, what's he do? It was pointless. Against Burnley, they were absolutely dominating the game. Burnley had the chance with Chris Wood, but other than that, weren't creating anything, were barely getting forward. Arsenal were piling on the pressure. All of a sudden, Granit Xhaka's grabbing people by the throat, trying to scrap the whole Burnley team. Off he goes, Arsenal lose. It really, really was almost disgraceful. And then I've written, compare it with Matteo Guendouzi, who was run out of the club, realistically. Now, I don't particularly rate Guendouzi myself, but for what he did was very, very similar to this Granit Xhaka situation. A lack of discipline, a hot-headed moment, even the same action, grabbing someone by the throat, and it cost him his Arsenal career. It was after that game, that's when they decided he can't be around. Obviously, there was more things in Guendouzi situation where outside of the pitch or the changing rooms, any like just discipline. But if Granit Xhaka is serious at Arsenal, which I don't believe he is anymore, he needs to be treated the same as what Matteo Guendouzi was, because it's the same situation. And if anything, this Granit Xhaka one is worse. There's been rumours of him leaving now, or in come January, Granit Xhaka, because of the state of the club, the state of him at the club. He's been linked to Borussia Mönchengladbach and where he was before he joined Arsenal, as well as Inter Milan, who obviously have just had that shocking Champions League result where they came bottom of their group. But regardless, Granit Xhaka is probably on his way out, and he only has himself to blame because he had the trust of the manager. The fans were back on side. He was performing well, and then he let it all slip. And now this stupid red card, really, in my opinion, has to be the end of his Arsenal career. Next, I think we should probably talk about what they should do, like what they've done wrong, or what the club as a whole have done wrong, as well as Mikel Arteta, and then what the club and possibly Arteta should do about it. So I think Arteta came into the club with a specific style that he wanted to play. The what was it, 3-4-3 essentially, where he would have Aubameyang out wide, drifting in with a focal striker of Lacazette who would drop in, hold the ball up, try and play it in behind. Willian or Pepe being creative on the right, wing backs getting forward, overlapping the wingers, creating wide space, and then the three centre backs who gave him dominance at the back to control the play of the ball, get it out, play it out, don't just have to clear it. And then they started losing games, they started losing confidence, and the situation, the fans called for it themselves, so it can't be a situation of, oh, he's done this wrong, because the fans wanted it, and it was the wrong decision, but he was pressured by the club, by the fans, by the performances of the players to change it to the 4-3-3 or 4-4-2, whatever you want to call it, based on where Alexandre Lacazette wants to be playing, because I don't even think he knows, to be perfectly honest. But now, any all the work that Arsenal put in on the training ground to learn that formation, to get the patterns of play going. You see the goal against Fulham and Man City, I believe, or Chelsea, one of them, where they were identical. The patterns of play were working for Arsenal, and then all of a sudden, switch formation. Lacazette different role. Aubameyang moved to the middle. Um, Willian playing sort of inverted rather than wide on his favoured right foot. He's coming inside and then sort of having to force the overlaps with Bellerin, leaving gaps at the back for counter attacks like we saw against Aston Villa. where they were really effective coming forward, especially Ollie Watkins would drift onto the left-hand side and come in. Jack Grealish drift off the left-hand side, start creating in the middle, just causing real issues. Now, I feel that decision for Arteta was big because all the work has gone out the window, and now they've got to work again and harder. And they've been a lot worse in this new formation. At least they were creating opportunities and chances with the five at the back formation. The patterns of play, although they were repetitive, they did work on occasion. And although the results weren't necessarily coming, they've been worse since they changed. So I think sticking to the plan and then grinding for your results was really probably the best option instead of having to change and feeling the pressure that he no doubt did feel off the fans. Um, it was just, I'm not sure, it was just a strange decision in my opinion. Also, I think if the club want to take it further and get rid of Mikel Arteta, because that's what some people are calling for it. And unsurprisingly, if you're getting bad results, what do? You sack your manager. West Brom have done it. This morning, actually, West Brom have sacked Slaven Bilic and brought in Sam Allardyce. And you can see that the board know what they want to do. They want to stay up, and they know he's the man to do it. So do Arsenal decide what they want, and then they get a new man for it, or do they back Arteta? I mean, if they want a new manager, surely you've got to look at Ralph Hasenhüttl, the fantastic job he's done at Southampton. You look at Julian Nagelsmann, fantastic, maybe a bit out of reach of Arsenal. Controversially, maybe a bit out of reach, but he has to be the one of the top targets. And then you've got Thomas Tuchel of PSG, who personally I don't rate, but I've seen people talk about him on Twitter. I've seen, obviously, he's a highly rated manager in Europe. I mean, to have managed Borussia Dortmund and PSG is they're big clubs, and so he's got experience. He's got Champions League experience now, of course, as well. So perhaps he could be the man. And then you've got even Lucien Favre. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Hopefully that's right. Of Dortmund, who's just been sacked at Borussia Dortmund, but that's another manager that's available now for Arsenal. Massimiliano Allegri, again, not probably the type of football that Arsenal are looking to play with, but a manager that will get you results and a manager that knows his craft. And there will be less issue with him in charge than there will with who is a largely inexperienced Mikel Arteta. So if the club feel the need to change the plan, then perhaps that could be the way to do it. Get an experienced manager, get someone that knows what they're doing, and put the effort in and put the work in. But any manager that you get in, you have to back. Arteta was promised a creative midfielder, supposedly. They targeted Auer, they targeted Szoboszlai. They didn't get either of them. Szoboszlai has now gone to RB Leipzig, and Auer will, in my opinion, go to Arsenal, whether it's in January or whether it's next summer. But they should have brought him in much earlier. He was the player that they needed in the summer. They really needed him, and then they splashed 50 million on Partey, who will have a big impact, and he's a fantastic player, but he wasn't what they needed really. When I'm talking about issues with the club, Aubameyang's not been performing, Lacazette's not been performing, Hector Bellerin's not been performing. This list could go on for way too long. These are players who you sort of instantly associate with Arsenal, these three especially, and for them to be so poor and to be not performing for the club, Arsenal really are having problems. These are their big players. Aubameyang is their impact player. He's the Golden Boot winner. Quite like, obviously he didn't win it last year. Jamie Vardy did, but Aubameyang was a close second. Easily Arsenal's top scorer by quite far, I believe. Their goal getter is now not getting goals. He's got the same amount of own goals this season as he has open play goals for Arsenal, and that really points to the massive issue of performance. Now, do you put it down to confidence, or is it just player issues where they don't care? Because that's what Freddie Ljungberg said. The players don't care, and he said bringing in an Arteta or bringing in any manager will not change the fact that the players do not care about the club. And I mean, as a fan, I mean, I'm not an Arsenal fan myself, but if I was hearing that Palace players didn't care about the club, that's painful. That's your club needs a whole overhaul if that's the case. If your players don't care, then what do? There's no coming back from that. If the players don't care, don't have them at the club. It needs a massive refurbishment. Now, for the assistant manager at the time under Unai Emery, and then even managed the players for a couple of games, to come out and say that the players simply don't care about the club is outrageous. To be perfectly honest, that is ridiculous, and that is probably where the whole issue lies. When the players don't care, that's that. Like, they're not going to put in the effort, they're not going to put in the work, they don't want to change it around. Aubameyang's got this big new contract. Everyone's on big contracts at Arsenal. So why would they change the way they're playing for the club when they can just get on with it, get paid, go home, talk to their supermodel missus? Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing is really the issue with probably modern football, but mainly with Arsenal Football Club. The point around Arsenal Football Club really has changed. I mean, to be they used to be referred to as the Arsenal. The Arsenal. You knew what that was when you hear it. When you hear the Arsenal, you're thinking Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, Freddie Ljungberg, all of these guys, Dennis Bergkamp, these guys here. But now you can't really have the on the front of your name because it's embarrassing for the club now. The Arsenal. What, you've got Granit Xhaka and Mohamed El Neni for the Arsenal? Nah. You've got Rob Holding planted back, the Arsenal, never. You've got Willian stinking up the right wing. That's not the Arsenal, and that comes with the whole culture change around the club. Again, when you think the Arsenal, you think class, you think pretty football, you think that club, they know what they're doing, they've got an identity. What identity does this team have at the moment? To be honest, nothing. When you think Arsenal now, they're a laughing stock, and they have been since 2016, probably 2017. And when Arsene Wenger left, so did the Arsenal. That's the sort of standout point that I want to make is that when you think of the classy Arsenal, that has gone. The whole, even around the club, stop. Let's not even, without even talking about the players and the gaffer, the club has lost its class to sack all of those people, to sack Gunnosaurus. As much as it was a laughing point, and everyone sort of went, haha, Gunnosaurus been sacked, Aubameyang big contract. That's quite a, like, in a way, that's a serious thing, because how long has he been at the club for? And they're disrespecting him like that. It wouldn't have happened under Arsene Wenger. Quite simply, it wouldn't. And that's as far as it goes. The whole culture around the club really has changed. And now, even if you look at I don't know if he's the director of football. I don't know, to be honest, what his exact role is. But Edu did an interview the other day, and he seems confused. And he's meant to be the main guy, and he's confused. He said that I've got written down the comments on Willian, where he said when he arrived, he was like, "Yeah, I believe Willian's a player that can come in and instantly make an influence, make a change to the team." And then yesterday, or whenever the interview was conducted, he goes, "The fans are expecting Willian to come in and make make an instant impact, and you can't be expecting our players to do that." So why did you say it when you signed him? Why did you say that that's what you expect from him? When now you're deciding, oh, he's not that kind of player to make an impact like that. He needs time to settle in. So why? So what's with the original comments? And when your technical director is making statements like that and having issues like that, that's really is a big problem. Because when the guys in charge of the club are incompetent, that rubs off. And what would you expect the rest of the club to do when the ones in charge and the top men don't even know what they're doing themselves? What I've just been talking about, the headline that I've written for that, the club is rotting from the inside out. And that is really the main sort of point that I want to take from this. Arsenal Football Club, or the Arsenal, are rotting to the point where the cracks are now showing, the performances are now dipping, but it's been much more than that for much longer than this. I've also got them written down the lack of confidence in the players. I know I've spoken about it before, but the more you struggle to perform, the more it rubs off and you keep on struggling. So Aubameyang, let's talk from a perspective of any random striker. When you're through on goal, it's about composure, it's about confidence, it's about taking your chance. You know what you're gonna do. It doesn't matter what about these outside influences. You're not bothered about the keeper. The keeper doesn't stop you. You shoot. You put the ball where you want to put it, and you score. As soon as you're lacking confidence, you doubt it in your mind. You're running through, and you think, "Oh God, the keeper's there, so I've got to do this." But if I hit it this way, then this might happen. Oh, there's a player behind me. All the outside influences start playing on your mind, and that's what's happening in general with the Arsenal players. They're now thinking that they're gonna make a mistake, and and that's what makes them do it. They're not playing naturally. They're forcing the game. They're forcing these patterns of play. They're forcing themselves get forward when in their minds they're thinking, "Oh no, but what if this happens?" They're nervous. They're lacking confidence, and it can only be a downward spiral from that. As soon as you get your confidence, you can start performing naturally, easily, without having to even think about it really. But at the moment, when you look, there's no fluidity to the game because the players are worried about making a mistake. And in my opinion, that comes down to fan pressure as well. As much as haha AFTV, funny banter, everyone laugh at them, that's an influence. And not just AFTV, but Arsenal fans in general are very expecting because they know what their club is and they know what they want from their club. And at the moment, they're not getting either of those. So rightly so, they're upset. The players will know that. 100% the players will know how upset these Arsenal players are, but these Arsenal fans are even. But when it comes down to it, that's pressure on the players. So that's another thing that can play on their mind. Oh, if I do this wrong, the fans will be on my back. Oh, I've missed a chance today. Oh, I know I'm gonna get 500 Twitter DMs and a YouTube video made about me. This will play on their mind. And another thing with the fans that I want to say. So fans have been let in stadiums recently, in certain stadiums, and I've watched quite a few games where the fans have really made a difference. Everton at Chelsea, fantastic. The fans were loud. They really brought their players on. Palace drawing with Tottenham, the Palace fans were loud. They almost sucked the ball into the net when that goal went in. Um, Multiple examples. But at Arsenal, silence. And it cuts to a picture of the crowd. There's a man sleeping in the crowd. He's got his face mask over his eyes and he's sleeping. There's another guy sitting there on his phone. Per Mertesacker, man who works for the club, sitting there playing games on his phone. There's in the crowd again, just people sitting and just chatting or not paying attention to the game, not getting behind the team, not backing their players. That's ridiculous because now is where the players need backing more than anything. 1-0 down against Burnley, and you're all sitting there in silence. Don't kill me, man. You're sitting there in silence. You need to be backing your players. That's when you get louder. Last few minutes of the game, you're attacking. There's a roar from the crowd. There's a presence. There's a boost. The 12th man. But no, not at Arsenal. Sit there in silence. Man are sleeping. Man are on their phones. And to be perfectly honest, Arsenal fans do get a lot of stick, but there is a reason for that, and this is the reason. And I was watching the Burnley game with my dad, and I said that these fans are going to boo after the game, and my dad was like, "What right do they have to do that? Because they've not made any influence themselves. They've not even tried to support their players to get them going, and then they want to boo after the game. You lot get booed yourself. And Arteta had the respect to go to the fans and applaud. What you applauding? They're booing you. They're not backing you when you're playing. You have no. As much as fans think they are the God's gift to football, the club don't have to respect the fans. To be perfectly honest, and these Arsenal fans shouldn't. They don't deserve respect from the club. To be as harsh as it is, and I know most people listening to this will be Arsenal fans, but when you're not back, as difficult it is to back your team through hard times, and it is, you have to make more of an impact than that. Just criticising and then not even paying attention at the games. To me, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous because the fans are the ones that get the players through the hard times, but not at Arsenal. Now, lastly, I, I sort of, as a general point that I just want to make, is that this Arsenal Football Club isn't what it used to be, and you can't expect it to be what it used to be either. Currently, Arsenal are a mid-table club. They've got some fantastic players, some world-class players even, but they don't have. They need to build, and they need to be given time to build and patience. They need a couple more players to be brought in. To be honest, the whole squad needs an overhaul, but short term, a couple more players need to be brought in. They need to get used to the way they're playing. They need to get used to. They can't just rely on someone to bail them out because they don't have that player. Aubameyang's not that player to bail you out of a situation. Willian's not that player to bail you out of a situation. They don't have that kind of player at the club. So you need to be patient. There's issues within the club that need to be solved. The dressing room atmosphere, probably the top priority. Now, how the club decide to go about that isn't for me to say or for anyone else. It's the way the players need to do it with themselves and with the manager and stop being so petulant like David Luiz to not talk to the manager. That stuff needs to get out because that's what harms the club more than anything else. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of points that I've probably missed out on, and again, I'll speak to people. I'll speak to Henry. I'll speak to other Arsenal fans that I talk to on Twitter a fair bit. But off the top of my head, mostly this is the issue with Arsenal Football Club. That will be the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening. I know it's a bit tedious, just me talking by myself, sort of rambling, but hopefully you enjoyed. Um, if this goes down well, then I'll probably do a couple more by myself. But for now, follow me on Twitter at CPFC underscore Cal. Follow Henry on Twitter, even though he's not here, at Jennings underscore. No, I don't even know it actually. Henry underscore Jennings 3, I think, or Jennings underscore Henry 3, one of them. Follow him. Follow at Doss's Football on Twitter. That's all I have to say really. Thank you for listening.